Miguel's blood froze as the CEO's daughter gripped his janitor uniform and sobbed. "They want to kill my mom." His dormant detective instincts instantly recognized the genuine terror in her eyes as the most dangerous secret in the building, one that only the invisible maintenance man had overheard. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The sound of quiet sobbing drew Miguel Reyes's attention as he maneuvered his cleaning cart down the gleaming marble corridor of Langford Industries' executive floor. 45 years old, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that carried the quiet wisdom of a man who had seen much but said little, Miguel paused. In his 15 years as head custodian of the building, he had learned that discretion was as important as diligence. The corporate elite who occupied these upper floors expected invisibility from the maintenance staff, to appear when needed and vanish when not, like benevolent ghosts who left only cleanliness in their wake. But the crying continued, soft and heartbroken, coming from the small alcove near the emergency exit. Miguel hesitated. The day shift had ended hours ago. The executives had departed in their luxury vehicles to penthouses and suburban mansions. Only the security team, a handful of workaholics, and the night cleaning crew should remain. He abandoned his cart and moved toward the sound. Tucked into the alcove, partially hidden behind a large potted palm, sat a small girl in a private school uniform, charcoal blazer, crisp white shirt, and plaid skirts. Her dark hair was coming loose from once perfect braids, and her face was buried in her hand. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. Miguel recognized her immediately. Sophia Langford, daughter of Alexandra Langford, the formidable CEO who had transformed her father's modest technology company into a global empire in less than a decade. The girl's photo appeared in the company newsletter whenever the CEO made charitable donations to children's causes, which was often. "Miss Sophia?" Miguel said gently, kneeling to her level but maintaining a respectful distance. "I'm Miguel, the building's custodian. Are you okay?" The girl's head snapped up, her eyes wide with alarm before recognition softened her features. "You're the man who fixed the water fountain on the day I spilled juice on my dress," she said, her voice small but precise. "You helped me clean it before Mother saw." Miguel nodded, surprised she remembered that brief encounter from months ago. "That's right. Is something wrong? It's very late for you to be here alone." Sophia glanced nervously down the hallway. "Mother had an emergency meeting. Ms. Phillips was supposed to watch me in Mother's office, but she got a phone call and stepped out." The girl's lip trembled. "I heard things I wasn't supposed to hear." Miguel felt a prickle of unease. "What kind of things, Miss Sophia?" The girl leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They want to kill my mom." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I heard them talking when they didn't know I was there." Miguel's blood ran cold, but he kept his expression neutral. Working in corporate buildings for decades had taught him that children often misunderstood adult conversations, particularly in high-pressure environments like Langford Industries, where metaphors about killing the competition or cutting throats were commonplace. "That's very frightening," Miguel said carefully. "Can you tell me exactly what you heard?" Sophia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I was playing my game with headphones in Mother's private bathroom, then my tablet died. When I took the headphones off, I heard voices in her office." Her voice dropped even lower. "Emma Harrington and someone else. They said the board meeting was moved up, that they couldn't wait until after Mother's trip to Singapore." Mr. Harrington said, "It has to look like an accident. The charges can never lead back to us." Miguel's own ease deepened. Victor Harrington was Langford's chief financial officer, a man with a reputation for ruthlessness that preceded him. Miguel had cleaned his office enough times to know the man was meticulous to the point of obsession, leaving not so much as a paperclip out of place. Then they said something about someone named Shell Company and how it would all be worth it once Mother was gone. Sophia continued. "The other man said they needed to be careful about their digital footprint, and Mr. Harrington said he'd handle the money personally. When they started to leave, I hid in the bathroom again." She looked up at Miguel, her eyes wide and frightened. "They're going to hurt her, aren't they?" Miguel considered his options carefully. If the girl had misinterpreted an innocent business conversation, rushing to security could embarrass both her and her mother. But if she had indeed overheard something sinister, "Where is your mother now?" he asked. "In the conference room with the board members. Ms. Phillips said not to disturb her." Sophia's voice broke. "I don't know what to do. Mother always says I'm too dramatic and imaginative." Miguel knew Alexandra Langford's reputation as a brilliant but intimidating woman who brooked no nonsense, even from her own daughter. If Sophia went to her with a story about murderous executives without proof, it might indeed be dismissed as childish fantasy. "I believe you," Miguel said simply, and watched as relief flooded the girl's face. "And I think we need to be very careful about what we do next." "You do? You believe me?" Sophia asked, looking shocked and relieved simultaneously. "Yes, I do." Miguel's mind was already racing through possibilities. "Did they say when this accident was supposed to happen?" Mr. Harrington said it had to be before she left for Singapore. "She leaves tomorrow night." Miguel nodded thoughtfully. What Sophia had described sounded disturbingly like a conversation about a planned corporate assassination, not a metaphorical business strategy. The mention of money changing hands, ensuring it looked like an accident, and the specificity of timing all pointed to something potentially deadly serious. "Miss Sophia, I need you to trust me," Miguel said. "Can you do that?" The girl studied him carefully, then nodded. "I'm going to help you protect your mother, but we need to be smart." If these men are dangerous, we can't let them know we suspect anything. Miguel glanced at his watch. When is your mother's meeting supposed to end? Miss Phillips said another hour. Sophia replied. Mother has dinner reservations at 8. Miguel made a decision. All right, first we need to get you somewhere safe where you can stay with a trusted adult. Is there someone your mother would approve of? Someone not connected to Mr. Harrington? Sophia thought for a moment. Uncle James. He's not really my uncle, but he's mother's college friend. He's the head of security for the building, James Chun. Miguel knew him well, a former military intelligence officer who now ran Langford Industries. Security with precision and integrity. If anyone would know how to handle this situation discreetly and effectively, it would be Chun. Perfect. Let's find him right away. Miguel stood and offered his hand, which Sophia took without hesitation. As they walked toward the security office, Miguel's mind continued working the problem. He had spent 15 years in this building, watching, listening, learning its rhythms and secrets. The cleaning staff were invisible to the executives, which meant Miguel had seen things, affairs, shady deals, explosive arguments that no one realized he had witnessed. He had master keys to every room, knew every camera blind spot, and had memorized the schedules of every important player in the building. But he also had another advantage, one that no one in Langford Industries knew about. Before he became Miguel Reyes's head custodian, he had been Miguel Reyes's detective first grade with the Financial Crimes Division. His career had ended when a bullet meant for a corrupt hedge fund manager had found his shoulder instead, leaving him with chronic pain and a disability retirement at 38. Unable to sit idle but needing a low-stress position, Miguel had taken the custodial job, finding unexpected satisfaction in the honest work and the anonymity it provided. Over the years, he'd kept his investigative skills sharp by solving minor mysteries around the building, identifying a lunch thief on the accounting floor, figuring out who had been tampering with the thermostats, tracking down a missing engagement ring for a distraught executive assistant. But he had never imagined that those skills might one day be needed for something this serious. If Sophia had indeed overheard a murder plot, Miguel was possibly the only person in the building with both the access and the training to uncover the truth without alerting the conspirators. As they reached the security office, Miguel squeezed Sophia's hand reassuringly. Remember, when we talk to Mr. Chun, let me explain first. We need to be very careful about who knows what you heard. Sophia nodded solemnly. Are you going to tell him you were a police detective? Miguel started in surprise. How did you know that? A ghost of a smile crossed the girl's tear-stained face. Mother says I'm too observant for my own good. You watch people like my self-defense teacher does, always noticing things, and you have a policeman's eyes. My grandfather was a police chief, and Mother says I inherited his eyes too. For the first time that evening, Miguel smiled. Perhaps Alexander Langford's daughter was indeed as observant as her mother was reputed to be. And perhaps that was exactly what they would need to prevent a tragedy and expose whatever conspiracy was brewing in gleaming upper floors of Langford Industries. James Chun's office was a study in precision. Unlike the opulent executive spaces with their modern art and floor-to-ceiling windows, the head of security preferred functionality. 3 monitor screens displaying camera, a spotless desk with files arranged in perfect alignment, and walls lined with security certifications and a single framed photo of Chun with Alexandra Langford at what appeared to be a university rowing competition. Chun himself matched his surroundings, crisp, efficient, and meticulously put together even at this late hour. His expression remained neutral when Miguel and Sophia entered, though his eyes betrayed momentary surprise at the unlikely pair. Miss Reyes, he acknowledged with a nod. Then, more warmly, Sophia, what brings you here? I thought you were with Ems Phillips while your mother finishes her meeting. Before Sophia could blurt out her story, Miguel spoke. Mr. Chun, we need to speak privately about a security matter of the highest sensitivity. His eyes flicked meaningfully towards Sophia. Chun caught the hint immediately. Sophia, would you like some hot chocolate? There's a break room through that door with a machine. Help yourself. Once Sophia was out of earshot, Miguel lowered his voice. Sir, Sophia overheard what sounds like a conspiracy to harm Ms. Langford, possibly orchestrated by Misa Harrington. I believe her account deserves serious consideration. Chun's expression didn't change, but his posture stiffened slightly. Explain. Miguel recounted Sophia's story precisely, including the specific phrases about making it look like an accident, and references to a shell company and digital footprints. Did you know I was law enforcement before I came here? Miguel asked when he finished. Chun's lip quirked. Course. We do background checks on all employees. Detective first grade financial crimes. Distinguished service record until the Westmore case. I always wondered why someone with your background would be content as a custodian. Miguel wasn't surprised. Then you understand why I'm taking this seriously. That wasn't the language of corporate metaphor I heard from that girl. Those were the words of people planning something illegal. Chun steepled his fingers. Alexandra has made enemies. The company's aggressive expansion under her leadership has put several competitors out of business. And internally ... single quotes, he hesitated. The board meeting today was contentious. Harrington has been pushing for more conservative growth, while Alexandra wants to continue expanding into emerging markets. Contentious enough to plan murder? Miguel asked bluntly. I wouldn't have thought so, Chun admitted, but Harrington has been acting strangely the past few weeks. Closed-door meeting, cryptid calls. I flagged it, but Alexandra dismissed my concern. Miguel nodded. I've noticed changes in his routine too. He used to leave precisely at 6:30 every evening. Lately, he stays until after 9, but his office light remains off, and he's been receiving visitors who don't sign in through security. Chun raised an eyebrow. How would you know that? I'm invisible, Miguel replied simply. I see everything while seeing nothing. It's what makes a good detective and a good custodian. Chun considered this, then made a decision. I can't approach Alexandra with just a child's overheard conversation, no matter how credible I find you both. She'll need evidence. He pulled out his phone. I'm reassigning her evening security detail to people I personally vetted. Meanwhile, we need to investigate discreetly. If Harrington is planning something, we can't tip him off. Miguel nodded. Sophia said her mother leaves for Singapore tomorrow night. That doesn't give us much time. What do you need? June asked. All business now. Access to the security camera archives, particularly around Harrington's office, and I'd like to examine his workspace tonight after he leaves. Chun hesitated. I can authorize the camera access, but searching his office without cause would be a breach of protocol. Miguel smiled slightly. I'm on the cleaning schedule for the executive floor tonight. No one questions a custodian emptying trash can. Convenient, Chun replied, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. I assume you know how to search without leaving evidence? I've had practice on both sides of that equation, Sophia returned, clutching a steaming cup of hot chocolate. Her eyes darted between the two men. Did you tell him? Chun knelt to her level, his usually stoic face softening. Yes, he did. And I want you to know that we're taking this very seriously. You did exactly the right thing by telling Mr. Reyes. Relief washed over Sophia's features. Are you going to tell Mother? Not yet, Chun said gently. We need to gather more information first, but I promise we'll keep her safe. Right now, I need you to be brave for a little longer. Can you do that? Sophia nodded solemnly. Good, Ems. Phillips will be looking for you. We need to get you back without raising suspicions. Can you act normally around her, pretend nothing has happened? Yes, Sophia said. Mother says I'm excellent at negotiation face. It's the same thing, right? Chun chuckled despite the gravity of the situation. Exactly the same, Reyes and I have work to do, but I'll personally escort you back to your mother's office. After Chun left with Sophia, Miguel settled at a secondary security console. Chun had granted him limited access to the building's surveillance system, focusing on the executive floor for the past month. Miguel's trained eyes scanned through footage, focusing particularly on Harrington's movements, visitors, and after-hours activities. Patterns began emerging. 3 men had visited Harrington repeatedly without signing in through regular security. Each arrived separately, never together, and always after business hours. Miguel captured still images of their faces. More concerning was the footage from 2 nights prior. Harrington had entered Alexandra Langford's private office at 10:42 p.m. using his executive override. He'd remained inside for 27 minutes, focusing primarily on her desk and personal items. Whatever he was doing, he'd worn gloves. Miguel was still reviewing footage when Chun returned. Sophia's back with Phillips, who was frantic looking for her. I smoothed it over, said Sophia came to visit me to talk about her mother's birthday next month. He glanced at the screens. Find anything? Miguel showed him the patterns he'd identified. I need to search Harrington's office tonight, and I'd like to check Langford's office as well if possible. Chun nodded grimly. I'll make sure you have access. The board meeting should end within the hour. Harrington typically goes to the Westbrook Club for drinks afterward on meeting days. That should give you a window. And Miss Langford added 2 additional security personnel to her detail tonight, people who owe me favors and won't ask questions. If anyone makes a move, they'll be protected. Chun paused. But Miguel, if we're wrong about this ... single quotes, I know, Miguel acknowledged. I could lose my job. You could lose yours. But if we're right and do nothing ... single quotes, Chun didn't need him to finish the thought. 40 minutes later, Miguel was back in his custodian uniform, pushing his cleaning cart through the executive floor. The board meeting had concluded and the participants had dispersed. As predicted, Harrington had left the building, his driver taking him to his regular club. Miguel entered Harrington's office with his master key, snapping on latex gloves, a normal precaution for cleaning that also served his investigative purposes. He started with the desk, methodically examining each drawer while maintaining its exact organization. Years of searching suspects' spaces had taught him how to look without leaving traces. In the credenza behind the desk, Miguel found what appeared to be a standard external hard drive concealed in a false bottom beneath a stack of corporate annual reports. It was password protected, but Chun might have resources to bypass that. The trash can yielded something even more valuable, tiny fragments of paper that hadn't fully disintegrated in the shredder. To the untrained eye, they were meaningless confetti. To Miguel, they were puzzles. He carefully collected the fragments into an evidence bag, continuing his search. In Harrington's private bathroom, the air freshener caught Miguel's attention. It was askew compared to everything else in the meticulously organized space. Examining it closer, he discovered it was a hollow fake, a hiding place containing a small vial of clear liquid and what appeared to be a folded schematic of plumbing systems. Miguel photographed everything before returning it exactly as he found it. then completed his normal cleaning routine. To any observer, he was simply a diligent custodian doing his job. Alexandra Langford's office was next. Unlike Harrington's minimalist space, the CEO's office was designed to impress. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A massive desk of polished redwood and walls adorned with awards and artistic photographs of global locations where Langford Industries operated. Miguel moved systematically through the space. The most concerning discovery came when he examined her private coffee service. The machine had been subtly tampered with. Small scratches around the water reservoir indicated it had been opened and reclosed. Miguel carefully swabbed the interior with testing paper from his kit, watching as it turned an alarming shade of blue. His phone vibrated, a text from Chun. Harrington returning early. Get out now. Miguel quickly finished his cleaning routine and exited, pushing his cart casually down the hallway just as the elevator doors opened at the far end, revealing Harrington deep in conversation with one of the unidentified men from the security footage. Miguel kept his head down, focusing on a stubborn spot on the floor as they passed. Neither man gave the custodian a second glance, invisible just as he'd said. Once safely back in Chun's office, Miguel laid out his find. A coffee machine in Langford's office has been contaminated with something. The test indicates it's not a standard toxin, but it's definitely not just coffee in there. Chun's expression darkened. And the other items? Hard drive, hidden vial, building schematics, and shredded documents that need reconstruct. We don't have time for a full forensic analysis, Chun said, checking his watch. Alexandra's dinner reservation is in 30 minutes. She always has coffee before leaving the office. Miguel's pulse quickened. Then we're out of time for subtlety. We need to act now. Alexandra Langford stood at her office window, the city lights spread before her like a galaxy of earthbound stars. At 43, she commanded not just Langford Industries, but the respect of an entire industry. Her tailored charcoal suit emphasized her tall, athletic frame, while her dark hair was pulled back into a sleek bun that highlighted sharp cheekbones and penetrating eyes that rarely missed a detail. She checked her watch. A vintage Potkick Philippe that had belonged to her father. 15 minutes until she needed to leave for dinner with the Japanese investment team. Just enough time for her evening ritual. One perfect espresso from the machine that had been a gift from the Milan office. As she turned toward her private bar, her intercom buzzed. Ms. Langford, her assistant's voice came through. Mr. Chun is here. He says it's urgent. Alexandra frowned. James never interrupted her post-meeting decompression time. It was one of the unspoken rules of their 20-year friendship. Send him in. James entered, his face a careful mask of professionalism that Alexandra knew concealed concern. Behind him, unexpectedly, was the head custodian, Miguel something. She'd noticed him over the years, an unusually dignified presence among the maintenance staff. This better be important, James, she said, her voice. It is. James closed the door. We have reason to believe your life is in danger. Specifically, we believe your coffee machine has been tampered with. Alexandra's eyebrow arched. In anyone else, this would have seemed absurd, even comical. Coming from James Chun, it was deadly serious. Explain, she commanded, moving away from the coffee bar. Sophia overheard a conversation between Victor Harrington and an unidentified associate about plans to harm you before your Singapore trip, James stated. Mr. Reyes here found her distressed and brought her concerns to me. Based on preliminary investigation, we've found evidence of tampering with your coffee machine and what appears to be a toxic substance. Alexandra's eyes narrowed, darting to the custodian. And your involvement is? Miguel Reyes, ma'am, he said, his voice steady and unexpectedly authoritative. Before becoming a custodian, I was a detective with financial crimes. Your daughter's account contains specific details that raised red flags, and preliminary testing of your coffee machine showed traces of an unidentified substance. Alexandra processed this information with remarkable composure. Sophia, where is she now? With Ems. Phillips in the executive lounge, James replied. She's safe. And you trust this information? From a child who admittedly has an active imagination? Miguel met her gaze directly. The details she provided weren't imaginative, Miss Langford. They were specific, technical, and concerning. Mr. Harrington referenced making your death look like an accident, discussed shell companies, and mentioned eliminating digital footprints. That's not the vocabulary of childhood fantasy. Alexandra's face remained impassive, but something flashed in her eyes, not fear, but a cold, calculating anger. James secured that coffee machine as evidence. Call Trevor in legal and have him prepare for potential corporate espionage charges. She turned to Miguel. Reyes, what else have you discovered? Miguel explained his findings concisely. The hard drive, the hidden vial, the building schematics, and the shredded documents. Alexandra absorbed each detail, her mind clearly working through implications and next steps. We need more concrete evidence before confronting Harrington directly. He's too smart to leave an obvious trail. With respect, Ems. Langford, Miguel said. We don't have time for a lengthy investigation. If they're targeting you before Singapore, that gives us less than 24 hours. And now that we've removed the coffee machine threat, they might accelerate their timeline or try another approach. Alexandra considered this. You're right, we need to draw them out. She turned to James. Do they know we're on to them? Not as far as we can tell, James replied. Mr. Reyes maintained his cover while searching Harrington's office. Good. Alexandra paced, formulating a plan. Here's what we'll do. I'll proceed with my dinner as scheduled. James, I want double security, but keep it discreet. Mr. Reyes, I'd like you to continue your investigation. Focus on reconstructing those shredded documents and identifying Harrington's accomplices. Miguel hesitated. Ms. Langford, it might be safer if you canceled your dinner and remained under protection until we neutralize the threat. Alexandra smiled thinly. Canceling would alert them that something's wrong. Besides, Mr. Reyes, I don't hide from threats. I face them head on. Then at least let us check your car before you leave, Miguel insisted. The parking garage has minimal surveillance coverage, making it an ideal location for staging an accident. James nodded in agreement. He's right, Alexandra. Standard protocol would be to secure your transportation. Fine, she conceded. Check the car, but do it quickly and discreetly. I won't give Harrington the satisfaction of disrupting my schedule. 10 minutes later, Miguel was in the executive parking garage with James, methodically examining Alexandra Langford's sleek black Mercedes. Years of investigative experience guided his hands as he checked beneath the vehicle, inspected the brake lines, and examined the engine compartment. Clean so far, he murmured, sliding out from underneath the car. Let me check the interior. The moment Miguel opened the driver's door, his instincts fired a warning. The luxury car's interior was immaculate as expected, but something about the steering wheel caught his attention. Under the specialized flashlight from his toolkit, almost invisible particles glinted on the leather surface. James, Miguel called quietly, we have a problem. Chun joined him, examining the steering wheel under the light. What am I looking at? Transdermal toxin, Miguel explained, designed to be absorbed through the skin. It's nearly invisible, odorless, and takes effect gradually. By the time symptoms appeared, she'd be miles away from here, probably on the highway. Making it look like she lost consciousness while driving, James concluded grimly. A tragic accident, just as Sophia overheard. Miguel carefully collected samples using specialized wipes from his kit. We need to get this analyzed immediately. I know someone who can fast-track it, James said, already dialing. Former colleague at the bureau. Meanwhile, I'll have a replacement vehicle brought around. As James handled the logistics, Miguel continued searching the vehicle, finding no other tampering. Whoever had applied the toxin had been focused and precise professional work, not amateur sabotage. By the time Alexandra arrived in the garage, escorted by 2 security personnel, a different Mercedes identical to hers was waiting. Your car's been compromised, James informed her without preamble. Toxin on the steering wheel, likely intended to cause unconsciousness while driving. For the first time that evening, Alexandra's composure wavered slightly. Sophia was right, she said quietly. Yes, Miguel confirmed. And given the sophistication of this attempt, whoever is behind this has professional resources. Alexandra's expression hardened. I want Harrington watched. Every move, every call, every contact. Already done, James assured her. I've assigned our best people. If he so much as sneezes, we'll know about it. And I'd like to interview Sophia, Miguel added. She may have heard or seen more than she initially shared. Alexandra nodded. After my dinner, I'll bring her to my residence. You can speak with her there. She fixed Miguel with an evaluating stare. You're considerably more than a custodian, Mr. Reyes. Sometimes the best vantage point is from the shadows, Ms. Langford, Miguel replied. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Indeed, she checked her watch. I need to go. James with me. Mr. Reyes, continue your investigation. We'll reconvene at my penthouse at 11. As Alexandra departed with her security detail, Miguel returned to the building, his mind working through the implications of what they'd found. 2 sophisticated attempts on Alexandra's life in one evening suggested resources and planning beyond what Harrington could manage alone. This wasn't an impulsive act of corporate treachery. It was a coordinated conspiracy with multiple contingencies. Back in the security office, Miguel laid out the shredded document fragments on a light table, carefully arranging them like a jigsaw puzzle. His years in financial crimes had given him ample practice reconstructing destroyed evidence. Patterns began to emerge from the chaos. Financial figures, account numbers, what appeared to be a contract, and most significantly, references to Project Artemis, a name that meant nothing to Miguel but clearly represented something important enough to kill for. His phone buzzed with a text from James. Dinner proceeding normally. Harrington spotted at his club with unknown mail. Surveillance continuing. Miguel acknowledged the update and returned to his painstaking work. He was so absorbed that he almost missed the soft click of the security office door opening behind him. Working late, Mr. Reyes? Miguel turned to find Victor Harrington standing in the doorway, immaculately dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. His smile didn't reach his eyes, which remained cold and calculating as they took in the fragments spread across the light table. Just catching up on some paperwork, Miguel replied casually, subtly sliding a folder over the most damning document pieces. Mr. Harrington, I thought you'd left for the evening. I forgot some important files, Harrington said smoothly, moving further into the room. I didn't expect to find our head custodian in the security office at this hour. Mr. Chun asked me to help organize some maintenance records, Miguel explained, maintaining his cover. Security needs to know which contractors have been in the building. Harrington nodded, his gaze sweeping the room with predatory assessment. Admirable dedication, though I wonder if it's truly the best use of your particular ... talents. The emphasis wasn't lost on Miguel. Harrington knew. Somehow he knew exactly who Miguel was. Just doing my job, sir, Miguel replied evenly. Indeed. Harrington's smile widened fractionally. We all have our roles to play, don't we? Even former detectives. The pretense was over. Miguel straightened, dropping the deferential posture of a custodian. What do you want, Harrington? Direct. I appreciate that. Single quotes. Harrington closed the door behind him. I came to offer you a proposition, Mr. Reyes. Or should I say Detective Reyes, a proposition? Miguel echoed, his mind racing. If Harrington knew his background, their entire operation was compromised. I'm afraid I don't understand, sir. Harrington smiled, the expression of a predator who believes his prey is cornered. Oh, I think you do. You see, I make it a point to know everything about key personnel in this building. When James Chun personally altered your security clearance earlier today, it triggered an alert in my system. Curious, I had my people run a deeper background check. He shrugged elegantly. Imagine my surprise when I discovered that our unassuming head custodian was once a decorated detective. Miguel remained silent, watching Harrington carefully. Every moment he kept the CFO talking was another moment for Alexandra to finish her dinner safely and for James to continue surveillance on Harrington's associates. No response? Fair enough. Harrington gestured to the light table. Those fragments you're piecing together so meticulously, they paint an incomplete picture. You're missing critical context. Then enlighten me, Miguel said, testing the waters. Harrington's eyes gleamed. Alexandra Langford isn't the victim in this scenario, Mr. Reyes. She's the perpetrator. Miguel's expression remained neutral, giving nothing away. That's a serious accusation against your CEO. Former detective indeed, Harrington chuckled. Always gathering information, never revealing your hand. He loosened his tie slightly, the first crack in his immaculate facade. Project Artemis. That's what you've been piecing together, isn't it? Do you even know what it is? Why don't you tell me? Miguel replied. Harrington studied Miguel for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. Project Artemis is a bioweapon, developed in a Langford Industries subsidiary operating under multiple shell companies. Alexandra has been personally funding the research for years, outside board oversight or government regulation. Miguel's mind flashed to the vial he'd found in Harrington's bathroom. And your evidence is substantial. The documentation you're attempting to reconstruct is just a fragment. I have server logs, financial trails, communications. Harrington's voice lowered. Do you know what happens when a bioweapon of this caliber is released in Singapore during the ASEAN Economic Summit? Global panic, market collapse, and Langford Industries strategically positioned to profit from both the chaos and the cure. It was an outlandish claim, yet Harrington delivered it with absolute conviction. Miguel needed to keep him talking, draw out more information while assessing whether there was any truth beneath the accusation. So your solution was assassination? Miguel asked, his tone deliberately skeptical. Harrington's face hardened. My solution was to stop a mass murder event. The board voted to remove Alexandra 3 days ago in an emergency closed session. She refused to step down, claiming we had no authority. We were planning to have her arrested tomorrow with federal agents present, but when she accelerated her timeline for Singapore, we had no choice. You expect me to believe the board authorized murder? Not murder, Harrington countered. Containment. The toxin was designed to incapacitate, not kill. We needed her stopped, and the evidence secured before anyone else got hurt. He stepped closer. You've been played, Mr. Reyes. That child's tears? Alexandra has been coaching Sophia for months on how to manipulate security personnel if she ever felt threatened. Miguel considered the possibility. In his years as a detective, he'd learned that sometimes the most respected public figures harbored the darkest secrets. But Sophia's fear had seemed genuine, her story consistent. Why tell me this? Miguel asked. Why not have me removed like any other obstacle? Because you're not like the others, Harrington replied. You're a man who's dedicated his life to justice, not corporate politics. I believe once you see the complete evidence, you'll understand we're on the same side. Miguel nodded thoughtfully as though considering the offer. And what exactly are you proposing? Join us. Help us contain Alexandra before she boards that flight tomorrow. In return, I'll ensure you receive proper recognition for your role in preventing a global catastrophe. Your days of anonymity in a janitor's uniform will be over. Your daughter's medical bills, yes. I know about Maya's condition, will be fully covered by the company's premium healthcare plan. The mention of Maya sent a chill down Miguel's spine. Harrington had done his research thoroughly. And if I refuse? Harrington's expression darkened. Then you're complicit in what follows. And I assure you, Mr. Reyes, you don't want that on your conscience. Miguel made a show of internal conflict, buying time as he processed the situation. Either Harrington was telling the truth about Alexandra, which would mean they were all in grave danger, or he was executing an elaborate deception to justify his actions. I'd need to see your evidence, Miguel said finally. All of it, Dots. Single quotes. Harrington smiled thinly. Of course, I have a secure drive in my office with the complete documentation, shall we? The moment was critical. Following Harrington might provide crucial information, but it would also separate Miguel from his communication with James and potentially lead him into a trap. After you, Miguel said, gesturing to the door. As they walked through the deserted corridors toward the executive wing, Miguel subtly activated the recording function on his phone and typed a blind text to James. With Harrington, executive floor, claims Alexandra bioweapon. Proceeding with caution. Harrington's office was bathed in the soft glow of a single desk lamp. He moved confidently to a painting on the wall, a minimalist landscape of snow-covered mountains, and swung it aside to reveal a concealed safe. Paranoid, I know, Harrington commented as he entered a complex combination, but necessary when dealing with someone like Alexandra. The safe door opened, revealing not documents but a small metallic case. Harrington removed it carefully and placed it on his desk. "This is what Alexandra plans to release in Singapore," he explained, opening the case to reveal a sealed vial containing an amber liquid, identical to what Miguel had found hidden in the bathroom. A proprietary pathogen developed under Project Artemis, highly contagious, engineered to target specific genetic markers. It could kill millions. Miguel studied the vial without touching it. "And your evidence that Alexandra is behind here." Harrington extracted a tablet from the safe, its screen protected by multiple layers of security. After entering several passwords, he handed it to Miguel. "Everything is documented. Financial transfers, research parameters, test results. Alexandra has been the sole director of this project from the beginning." Miguel scrolled through the files, his trained eye quickly assessing their authenticity. The documentation appeared comprehensive: financial trails, communications, scientific reports. If fabricated, it was an extraordinarily thorough deception. "Why not take this to the authority?" Miguel asked, continuing to examine the files. "We tried," Harrington replied, a note of frustration entering his voice. "Alexandra has political connections that run deep. Our initial overtures were shut down before they gained traction. That's why the board voted for direct intervention." As Miguel reviewed the evidence, something caught his attention: a recurring signature on the most damning documents. Not Alexandra's, but someone identified only as Consultant 8. The handwriting was with a peculiar loop on certain. "Who is this consultant?" Miguel asked, showing Harrington the signature. "One of Alexandra's trusted scientists," Harrington replied too quickly. "They use code names for security." Miguel's instincts flared. He'd seen that handwriting before, recently. Then it clicked. The same distinct loops appeared on notes he'd seen while cleaning Harrington's desk earlier that week. It was Harrington's own disguised handwriting. The realization must have shown on Miguel's face because Harrington's expression shifted subtly. The pretense was cracking. "Problem, Mr. Reyes?" he asked, his hand drifting toward his desk drawer. "Just connecting dots," Miguel replied carefully. "You've built a compelling case, then you understand why we had to act." "I understand that someone created these documents very carefully," Miguel said. "What I don't understand is why you'd frame your own CEO for bioterrorism." Harrington's facade of reasonableness evaporated. "You disappoint me. I had hoped for your cooperation." "The vial in your bathroom," Miguel continued, maintaining distance between them. "The one that matches this sample exactly. Strange place to store evidence of someone else's crime, isn't it? You've been in my private bathroom." Harrington's voice was dangerously quiet. "I'm a very thorough custodian." Harrington's hand completed its journey to the desk drawer. "I see I underestimated you. That was my mistake." Miguel tensed, preparing for whatever Harrington might produce from the drawer. "The board vote you mentioned, did it actually happen, or was that fabricated too?" The board will support whatever narrative emerges from tonight's events," Harrington replied coldly, "especially after Alexandra's tragic accident renders her unable to defend herself." In a swift motion, Harrington pulled a small handgun from the drawer. "I truly hope to enlist your help, Miss Reyes. Your investigative skills would have been valuable in what's to come." Miguel raised his hand slowly. "And what exactly is coming, Victor?" "A necessary transition of power," Harrington answered, training the gun on Miguel's chest. "Langford Industries has outgrown Alexandra's vision. The future demands new leadership." "Your leadership," Miguel said, the pieces falling into place. "This isn't about stopping a bioweapon. This is a corporate coup. Single coups." Harrington smiled thinly. "An oversimplification, but essentially correct. And now I find myself with an additional loose end to manage." Miguel glanced at the security camera in the corner of the office. "That camera is live, Victor. Security is watching this right now." "Please," Harrington scoffed. "I control the security systems on this floor. That camera has been on a loop for the past hour." The office door clicked open behind Harrington. "Not all of them," came James's Chun's voice as he entered, his own weapon drawn. "I maintain independent systems for executive protection." Harrington's face contorted with fury as he realized he'd been outmaneuvered. He spun toward Chun, weapon raised, time compressed to a series of stark, frozen images, Harrington's finger tightening on the trigger, James lunging forward, Miguel diving for cover behind the desk. The gunshot was deafeningly loud in the confined space of the office, echoing off glass and steel. Miguel felt rather than saw the bullet pass overhead, shattering the window behind him and sending a shower of glass fragments cascading to the floor. In the momentary chaos, James tackled Harrington with trained precision, driving him to the ground with enough force to knock the wind from his lung. The gun skittered across the polished floor. Miguel was on his feet in an instant, retrieving the weapon and training it on Harrington, who lay pinned beneath James's knee. "You idiots!" Harrington spat, blood trickling from a cut on his cheek where it had impacted the floor. "You have no idea what you're interfering with." James secured Harrington's wrists with restraints from his belt. "Victor Harrington, you're detained for conspiracy to commit murder, corporate espionage, and attempted assault with a deadly weapon." "This won't stick," Harrington snarled. "One call to my lawyers and save it," Miguel interrupted, holding up his phone. "This entire conversation is recorded, including your confession about attempting to murder Ems Langford and your admission that the board never Authorized any action against her. Harrington's face drained of color. That recording won't be admissible. Corporate property, corporate servers. Wrong again, James said, hauling Harrington to his feet. Miguel's phone isn't connected to company systems. And as for the security footage, he nodded toward the camera in the corner. It transmits to an independent server that only I control, specifically to prevent tampering by executives like you. The office door burst open as two of Chun's security team rushed in, weapons drawn, responding to the gunshot. Secure him, James ordered, handing Harrington off to them. Full isolation protocol. No communications, no visitors. As the security team escorted a still protesting Harrington away, James turned to Miguel. You okay? Miguel nodded, his heart rate gradually returning to normal. Fine, the bioweapon. We need to secure it. Together they carefully resealed the vial in its protective case. I'll have our hazmat team collect this, James said. We need to alert Alexandra immediately. Miguel was already dialing his phone. I'll call. You coordinate containment here. We still don't know how many people are involved in Harrington's conspiracy, Alexandra Langford answered on the first ring, her voice sharp with concern. Mr. Reyes, what's happened? Harrington is in custody, Miguel reported. He attempted to frame you for bioterrorism development as justification for your removal. We've secured what appears to be a biological agent and evidence of his conspiracy. A moment of silence on the line. Is everyone safe? Yes, though not for Harrington's lack of trying. You should conclude your dinner and return immediately with enhanced security. This isn't over. If Harrington was willing to pull a gun, his co-conspirators may be equally desperate. Understood. I'm 10 minutes out. Meet me in my office. The line went dead. Miguel pocketed his phone and surveyed the office. The shattered window, scattered glass, and overturned furniture told the story of how close they'd come to disaster. His attention returned to the tablet Harrington had shown him, still on the desk where he'd placed it before the confrontation. James, we need a forensic team on this tablet immediately. It contains the documentation Harrington was using to frame Alexandra. If we can trace its creation, we might identify his accomplices. James nodded, speaking rapid instructions into his comm unit. Within minutes, the office was transformed into a secured crime scene, with technical specialists downloading and analyzing data while others gathered physical evidence. Miguel carefully bagged the mysterious vial for transportation to a secure lab. What was Harrington really planning? He wondered aloud. This feels bigger than a simple power grab. It is, came a voice from the doorway. Alexandra Langford stood there, still in her dinner attire, flanked by security personnel. Despite the late hour and unfolding crisis, she appeared completely composed. Project Artemis isn't a bioweapon. It's the cornerstone of our next-generation medical research division. Single quotes. Miguel and James exchanged glances. Then what's this? Miguel asked, indicating the bagged vial. Alexandra approached, examining it through the clear evidence bag. This appears to be a prototype from our targeted immunotherapy program, designed to deliver cancer treatments to specific genetic markers without affecting healthy tissue. If weaponized, it could indeed be devastating. But that's not its purpose. Harrington claimed you were planning to release it in Singapore during the economic summit, Miguel said. Alexandra's expression hardened. That would be both monstrous and self-defeating. The Singapore trip is to finalize approval for our research facility there, a partnership with their government, to develop these therapies for global distribution. Harrington knew that, James realized. He wasn't just planning a coup. He was sabotaging the Singapore deal. But why? Miguel asked. What does he gain by destroying both you and the company's future? Alexandra moved to the window, looking out at the jagged hole where the bullet had shattered the glass. Perhaps the question isn't what he gains, but who gains. Langford Industries isn't just competing with other corporations. We're competing with entire nations for biomedical supremacy. The implication hung in the air. Corporate espionage was one thing. State-sponsored sabotage was another level entirely. We need to question him, Miguel said, before his lawyers arrive and shut everything down. Alexandra nodded sharply. James, prepare the security conference room. No recording devices except your independent system. Mr. Reyes with me. As James departed to make arrangements, Alexandra turned to Miguel. Sophia, where is she? With Miss Phillips in the executive lounge as requested. I need to see her, Alexandra said, her voice softening slightly. She's been through enough today. Miguel followed Alexandra to the executive lounge, where they found Sophia curled up on a leather sofa, her school tablet in hand, while Ms. Phillips worked nearby on her laptop. The girl's face brightened when she saw her mother, though anxiety still shadowed her eyes. Mother, Sophia exclaimed, jumping up and running to Alexandra, who embraced her with uncharacteristic demonstrativeness. Are you all right, darling? Alexandra asked, smoothing Sophia's hair. I'm okay, Sophia replied. Did Mathura Reyes and Mr. Chun stop the bad men? Alexandra glanced at Miguel over her daughter's head. Yes, they did, thanks to your warning. She knelt to Sophia's level, her voice gentle but serious. I need you to be brave a little longer. Phillips is going to take you home now, and Mr. Reyes' special friend will be there to keep you safe. Miguel raised an eyebrow in question. I've arranged for a former colleague of mine from federal law enforcement to secure my residence. Alexandra explained to him. Someone I trust implicitly. Sophia looked between them. Is Mir Harrington going to jail? Alexandra hesitated, clearly weighing how much to share with her daughter. That will be for the courts to decide, but he won't hurt anyone else. As Ms. Phillips gathered Sophia's belongings, the girl approached Miguel, her small face solemn. Thank you for believing me when I was scared. Miguel knelt to her level, much as he had hours earlier when he first found her crying in the alcove. You were very brave, Sophia. You saved your mother's life. Sophia glanced at her mother, then back to Miguel, lowering her voice. I heard more than I told you before. I was afraid to say it. Miguel maintained his calm expression while his investigative instincts sharpened. What did you hear, Sophia? They said something about Olympus falling, that it would happen during Mother's speech in Singapore. Mr. Harrington said it would change everything forever. Alexandra's face paled slightly. Olympus was the security code name for the ASEAN Economic Summit leadership. Sophia, this is very important, Miguel said gently. Can you remember anything else about what they said? Any other names or places? Sophia's brow furrowed in concentration. He said something about a delivery system being already in place, and that once it was done, someone called the architect would be pleased. She bit her lip. That's all I remember. Miguel and Alexandra exchanged alarmed glances. And this wasn't just about removing Alexandra or sabotaging the Singapore. It was potentially an assassination plot against multiple world leaders. Thank you, Sophia, Miguel said. You've been incredibly helpful. As Ems, Phillips escorted Sophia out. Alexandra's professional composure returned, though Miguel could see the strain beneath it. The architect, she said quietly. That's a code name used by Chinese intelligence for one of their senior operations directors. If they're involved, then Harrington is just a pawn in a much larger game, Miguel finished. And taking him into custody may have accelerated their timeline. Alexandra checked her watch. The Singapore delegation leaves in 9 hours. Whatever they're planning, we don't have much time to stop it. We need everything Harrington knows, Miguel said. We need it now. Agreed. Alexandra strode toward the security conference room, Miguel at her side. Mr. Reyes, I'm formally engaging you as a security consultant for Langford Industries, effective immediately. Your custodial cover is suspended until this crisis is resolved. Miguel raised an eyebrow. Is that necessary? Absolutely, Alexandra replied without breaking stride. I need you operating with full authority and access. Besides, after tonight, your invisibility within this building is compromised. They arrived at the conference room where James waited with Harrington, who sat handcuffed to a chair, a smug smile playing at his lips despite his circumstances. Alexandra, he said smoothly, come to negotiate terms of my release? Alexandra's face was a mask of cold fury. No, Victor. I've come to find out exactly who you sold my company to and what they're planning for at Singapore. Harrington's smile faltered slightly. I have nothing to say without my attorneys present. Miguel stepped forward. Olympus falling, he said simply. Watching Harrington's reaction carefully, the effect was immediate. Harrington's pupils dilated and a flash of genuine fear crossed his face before he could mask it. You're out of your depth, Harrington said, his voice no longer smooth but strained. All of you. This is bigger than corporate politics. If you interfere, the consequences will be severe. Alexandra leaned across the table, her voice deadly quiet. Threaten me again, Victor, and you'll discover just how severe consequences can be. Now tell us about the architect. Harrington's composure cracked further at the mention of the architect. His eyes darted to the door as if calculating escape routes. Though with his hands secured and James Chun standing guard, there was nowhere to go. You have no idea what forces you're meddling with, he said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. The architect isn't someone you can threaten or bargain with. Once a plan is in motion, it proceeds to completion. Always. We're not interested in the mystique, Victor, Alexandra said coldly. We want names, contacts, and specifics about the Singapore operation. Miguel observed Harrington's body language with a practiced eye. The CFO was terrified, but not of them, of whoever he was working for. That fear could be leveraged. The vial we found, Miguel interjected. It's not the actual bioweapon, is it? It's just a sample of proof of concept. Harrington's eyes flickered. Tell. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, Miguel pressed. The real payload is already in Singapore, waiting for delivery. That's why you were so desperate to stop Alexandra from traveling there, not to prevent an attack, but to ensure you could control the narrative after it happened. Alexandra caught on immediately. The targeted immunotherapy research. You twisted its purpose, didn't you? Took our medical breakthrough and weaponized it. Her voice was steady, but fury radiated from every syllable. You're making dangerous accusations without evidence, Harrington countered, but his confidence was clearly faltering. Miguel pulled a chair closer, sitting directly across from Harrington. Let me explain how I see this playing out, Victor, he said conversationally. Right now, you're the only one in custody. Your co-conspirators are still free, still executing the plan. When it succeeds, who do you think will take the fall? The absent masterminds? Or the CFO conveniently in custody with documented evidence linking him directly to the plot? Harrington paled slightly. You're the contingency plan, Miguel continued, his voice almost gentle. The backup scapegoat. If the operation succeeds, you're the face of corporate terrorism. If it fails, you're the sacrificial pawn. Either way, you'd never leave custody alive. That's absurd, Harrington scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? James joined in. I've been in this business long enough to recognize a containment protocol when I see one. Why else would the architect allow you to keep such incriminating evidence in your possession? Those documents, they're not tools. They're anchors ensuring you sink if the ship goes down. Harrington's eyes darted between them, the first real cracks of doubt appearing in his facade. Alexandra leaned forward. Your only chance of surviving this, Victor, is to give us everything now. Names, contacts, the full operational plan. Otherwise, when the architect realizes we've stopped you, your usefulness ends. Miguel watched the calculations play out across Harrington's face, self-preservation battling against fear of his mysterious employers. Finally, self-preservation won. I need guarantees, Harrington said, his voice barely audible. Witness protection, immunity from prosecution, offshore accounts they can't trace. You're not in a position to negotiate, Alexandra replied coldly, but cooperate fully, and I'll ensure you live to stand trial. It was a minimal offer, but given the circumstances, the best Harrington could hope for. He slumped in his chair, defeated. The architect is Liu Wei, Deputy Director of China's Ministry of State Security, Economic Division. Harrington's confession emerged in a rush of words. The plan was simple: eliminate the leadership of ASEAN nations opposed to China's economic policies, create market chaos, and position Langford Industries as an accomplice. Why target me specifically? Alexandra demanded. Your Singapore facility. It's perfect cover. The bioweapon, yes, they did weaponize your research, is designed to activate during your keynote presentation. The delivery system is built into the ventilation of the conference hall. By the time symptoms appear, you'll be back on your plane to the State. The evidence planted in your facility will make it appear that Langford Industries engineered a targeted attack against ASEAN leaders who opposed your expansion plans. Miguel processed this information, and your role: facilitation, access to research, financial channels for funding the operation. Harrington's voice was flat now, resigned. They approached me 18 months ago. Small requests at first, nothing alarming. Market intelligence, competitive information. Then it escalated. Blackmail? James asked. Harrington gave a bitter laugh. They didn't need it. They offered me something far more compelling. Exclusive distribution rights for Langford Pharmaceuticals in the Chinese market after Alexander was gone. Billions in guaranteed revenue. A seat on China's new Global Economic Council. Alexander's expression was one of cold disgust. You sold out your country and countless innocent lives for profit and position. Spare me the moral outrage. Alexandra, Harrington snapped, a flash of his former arrogance returning. Your ruthless expansion strategy has destroyed dozens of smaller companies. How many lives were ruined by your acquisitions? This was just business on a larger scale. Murder is not business, Miguel interjected sharply, and neither is treason. Harrington fell silent, the weight of his actions finally seeming to register. The specifics of the delivery system, James pressed. How's it activated? Remote trigger. The biological agent is already in place in the ventilation system, sealed in containers that open when signaled. The activation code will come from someone inside the conference. I don't know who. A delegate, security personnel, someone with access, and this happens during Alexandra's speech, Miguel clarified. Harrington nodded. Maximum symbolic impact. Western biotech CEO unknowingly unleashes pathogen that kills Asian economic leader. The diplomatic fallout would be catastrophic. ASEAN relations set back decades. Alexandra stood abruptly. James, I want every detail of the Singapore conference security arrangements, personnel, systems, floor plan. MR. Reyes, work with our tech team to identify all equipment installed in that conference hall within the last 3 months. I'm calling Washington. As Alexandra stepped out to make her calls, Miguel fixed Harrington with a penetrating stare. There's more you're not telling us. Something that has you even more scared than the architect. Harrington looked away. Victor, Miguel said quietly, whatever game you're playing, it ends now. What else is part of this plan? After a long moment, Harrington met Miguel's gaze. The pathogen. It's not just targeted at the ASEAN leadership. It's engineered to specifically affect certain genetic markers. Primary targets are from Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, all countries challenging China's South China Sea claims. A genetic weapon? James asked, horrified. Designed to look like natural susceptibility, Harrington confirmed. The perfect plausible deniability. Some victims will fall ill immediately, others days later. By the time anyone realizes it's a coordinated attack, the evidence will be degraded beyond detection. Miguel felt a chill. This wasn't just terrorism. It was genocide, cloaked in plausible deniability. The architect is already in Singapore, Harrington added, his voice dropping further, overseeing final preparations. If you alert authorities openly, they'll simply accelerate the timeline or switch to a backup plan. We need a covert approach, James said to Miguel. Get into the conference center, locate and neutralize the delivery system without alerting the operative. Miguel nodded. But we need proof first. If Harrington is lying, I'm not, Harrington interrupted. Check the third floor of the parking garage, space 327, black Audi. The trunk contains a duplicate of the delivery system prototype. They had me transported as a test of loyalty 6 weeks ago. I kept it as ... insurance. Against the architect? Miguel asked. I'm not a fool, Harrington replied wearily. I knew I was expendable once the operation succeeded. The duplicate was my leverage, proof I could provide to authorities if they tried to eliminate me. Yet you left it in your car rather than a secure location? James asked skeptically. Hidden in plain sight. The car is registered to a shell company. The space is paid for in cash month. No cameras cover that section of the garage. It was safer than keeping it anywhere connected. James dispatched 2 security officers to verify Harrington's claim while Miguel continued the interrogation. How many people at Langford are involved? Just me at the executive level. There are 2 researchers in the Singapore facility who've been compromised. Dr. Helen Park and Dr. Raven Mehta. They believe they're working on defensive bioweapons for the U.S. government. The architect's people posed as military contractors. Miguel made note. And the activation trigger? How exactly does that work? It's synchronized to the conference AV system. When Alexandra begins speaking, the microphone signal is supposed to trigger a specific frequency that activates the release mechanism. Pieces click together in Miguel's mind, so anyone who accesses the AV equipment could potentially... He was interrupted by Alexandra's return. Her face was grim. Washington is scrambling a covert response team, but they won't reach Singapore for at least 12 hours. By then, my keynote will be underway. She looked between Miguel and Jane. We're on our own for the critical window. We need to get to Singapore immediately, Miguel said. Before the architect realizes Harrington is compromised, Alexandra nodded. My plane is being prepared. We leave in 30 minutes. She turned to Harrington. You're coming with us. If any detail you've provided proves false, I'll personally hand you over to the authorities in Singapore. Harrington's face drained of color. That's a death sentence. If the architect's people see me, you should have considered that before joining a conspiracy to commit mass murder. Alexandra cut him off coldly. James, secure him for transport. Miss Reyes. A word. She led Miguel to a corner of the room. I'm placing a great deal of trust in you, she said quietly. A man I barely know, who until today was maintaining my building's cleanliness. I understand the risk, Miguel replied. But you should know I didn't take the custodial job by accident. After my injury forced me out of active detective work, I could have taken a desk job. I chose this instead because it let me keep observing, investigating in my own way. Old habits. Alexandra studied him thoughtfully. Sophia trusts you implicitly. She's an excellent judge of character. Better than I am, evidently. She glanced at Harrington. I need to know, what's your assessment? Is he telling the truth? Miguel considered. Most of it, yes. But he's still holding something back, something personal. Find out what it is, Alexandra instructed. On the plane. We can't afford any more surprises. As they prepared to depart, Miguel's phone buzzed with a text from the security team sent to check Harrington's car. Package confirmed. Hazmat securing now. Also found documentation. Appears to be complete operational plans. Miguel showed Alexandra the message. It seems Victor was telling the truth about the device at least. Good, she replied. Now we just need to determine if he's telling the truth about everything else. She glanced at her watch. 7 hours until we land in Singapore. 8 until my keynote. Not much time to prevent a global catastrophe. I've worked with tighter deadlines, Miguel said with grim humor, though admittedly, never with stakes quite this high. Alexander Langford's private jet sliced through the night sky at 45,000 feet, its cabin transformed into a mobile command center. Screens displayed building schematics, personnel files, and security protocols for the Singapore conference. The luxury that normally defined the aircraft had been subsumed by the urgent machinery of crisis response. Miguel sat across from Harrington, who remained handcuffed despite the private setting. The CFO had aged years and hours, his once immaculate appearance now disheveled, his confident demeanor replaced by nervous exhaustion. Something's still bothering me, Miguel said, sliding a bottle of water across the table to Harrington. This operation is extraordinarily complex. The architect chose you specifically, and you've maintained perfect operational security for 18 months. That suggests personal investment beyond mere profit. Harrington took a sip of water, avoiding Miguel's gaze. What's your real connection to Lu Wei? Miguel pressed. Harrington's jaw tightened. What does it matter now? It matters because incomplete information gets people killed, Miguel replied calmly. Whatever you're hiding could be critical to stopping this attack. At the other end of the cabin, Alexandra was coordinating with her Singapore facility security team, issuing rapid-fire instructions while James analyzed the conference center blueprint. They were deliberately giving Miguel space to work on Harrington. The CFO stared out the window at the darkness beyond, his reflection ghostly against the black. I met Leo 15 years ago, he finally said, voice so low Miguel had to lean forward to hear. Before he was the architect, before I joined Langford. Quay. We were both economic attaches me for the U.S. Treasury, him for the Chinese Ministry of Commerce. Miguel waited silently, letting the confession unfold. We developed a personal relationship. Complicated, secretive. When it ended badly. Harrington's voice grew hollow. 2 years later, he recruited me. Said my unique perspective on Western business would be valuable to China's economic strategy. Small favors at first. Information that wasn't classified, just privileged. When did it escalate to treason? Miguel asked without judgment. Harrington flinched at the word. When Alexandra announced the Singapore biotech facility, Lu contacted me directly for the first time in years. Said this was my chance to be part of history, to help rebalance global economic power. A bitter smile crossed his face. I told myself it was just business intelligence, then research access, then ... Single quotes he trailed off. Then murder. Miguel finished quietly. I never intended. Harrington began, then stopped himself. No, that's a lie. I knew what the research could become in the wrong hands. I just convinced myself it was theoretical, that they were developing deterrence capabilities, not first-strike weapons. Until when? 3 months ago? Leo showed me the final operational plan during a meeting in Macau. The targets, the timeline, everything. I realized I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Harrington's voice cracked slightly. I tried to back out. Liu showed me files, surveillance on my sister's family in Boston, my parents in Florida, said my commitment was irreversible. Miguel studied Harrington carefully. So your attempts on Alexandra's life ... were genuine, Harrington admitted. If she died in an accident before Singapore, the entire operation would be delayed or canceled. One life to save many. At least that's how I justified it. The confession hung in the air between them. Miguel could see the tortured logic that had led Harrington down this path. A series of compromises, each seemingly small until they culminated in conspiracy to commit mass murder. We'll need everything you have on Lou, Miguel said. Personal habits, communication methods, operational patterns, anything that might help us identify his movements in Singapore. Harrington nodded wearily. I'll tell you everything I know, but you should understand, Liu isn't just executing policy. This operation is his personal project, his masterpiece. If it fails, he'll have a contingency. He always does. At the forward cabin, Alexandra concluded her calls and approached. Update? She asked Miguel. Our CFO has been compromised by Chinese intelligence for 15 years. Initially through a personal relationship with Lu Wei, Miguel summarized. The Singapore operation is apparently Lu's pet project, not just standard intelligence work. Alexandra absorbed this without visible reaction, though Miguel noticed her hands tighten momentarily. Victor, she said coldly. You'll brief my entire team on everything you know about Lu Wei's personal and operational patterns. Spare no detail, however embarrassing or incriminating. As Harrington began outlining Lu Wei's methodical approach to operations, Miguel joined James at the schematics table. What are we looking at? He asked. James indicated the conference center layout. The ventilation system was upgraded 3 months ago, supposedly for improved air filtration after the pandemic. The work was done by a Singaporean contractor with Chinese ownership, 3 levels removed through Shellcom. Perfect cover for installing the delivery mechanism. Access points? Miguel asked. Limited. The main mechanical room is secured and monitored. Roof access requires authorization. The most vulnerable point would be here. James indicated a maintenance corridor on the 3rd floor, where the secondary air handling units connect to the main system. Miguel studied the layout. Do we have assets at the conference center yet? 2 of my security specialists arrived an hour ago, posing as advance team for Alexandra's presentation. They're doing recon now, completely compartmentalized from regular security. James checked his watch. They'll have preliminary surveillance footage for us when we land. Alexandra joined them. The Singapore authorities have been quietly alerted, but we've requested no visible response. If Lu Wei's people detect heightened security or unusual activity, they might trigger the attack early, or switch to a backup plan, Miguel added, remembering Harrington's warning. Exactly. This needs to be surgical. Get in, neutralize the threat, secure evidence of Chinese involvement. All without alerting the operatives until they're surrounded. Alexandra outlined the strategy with military precision. Miguel considered the approach. The bioweapon delivery system, if it's designed to activate during your keynote, can we use that to our advantage? What are you thinking? James asked. A controlled environment. Alexandra delivers her speech as planned, but to an empty room. We evacuate the conference center quietly beforehand, citing a technical issue. When the system activates, we track the signal to its source. Using me as bait, Alexandra noted without inflection. Using your speech as bait, Miguel corrected. You wouldn't actually be in the room. We'd pipe in your presentation via the AV system. Single quotes. James nodded slowly. It could work. The activation trigger is keyed to her voice through the microphone. We could broadcast a pre-recorded segment, monitor all communications frequencies in the area, and triangulate the activation signal. Meanwhile, we have teams ready at all potential trigger points, Miguel continued. The moment we detect activation, we move in. Alexandra considered the plan. It's risky, but less risky than allowing the conference to proceed normally. I'll coordinate with Singapore authorities for the quiet evacuation. We'll need a convincing cover story that won't raise suspicion. Gas leak, James suggested. Mundane enough not to cause panic. Serious enough to justify evacuation. Technical enough that Liu's people might believe it's unrelated to their operation. Alexandra nodded. I'll make the arrangements. But we still need to locate and neutralize the delivery system itself. Even with the building evacuated, if that pathogen releases into the ventilation system, it could contaminate the entire structure. Miguel turned to Harrington. The delivery system prototype in your car, how is it constructed? What's the most effective way to neutralize it? Harrington leaned forward, seemingly eager to provide useful information. It's designed with redundancies. Multiple release mechanisms triggered simultaneously. The containment vessels are pressurized. If tampered with improperly, they'll release immediately. You need the deactivation sequence, which is? James prompted. A specific electronic signal that seals the containment vessels permanently. I have the code, but it needs to be transmitted via direct connection to the master control unit. And where would that be located? Miguel asked. The main air handling room. 4th floor mechanical space. Single quotes. Harrington's eyes moved to the schematics. There, it would be disguised as a new environmental monitoring system. James made notes. We'll need a technical team with hazmat capabilities. My Singapore facility has a containment unit, Alexandra said. I'll have them on standby. Miguel felt the familiar rhythm of case building, gathering information, formulating strategy, preparing contingencies. It was like his detective days, but with immeasurably higher stakes. 6 hours to landing, Alexandra announced, checking her watch. I suggest everyone get what rest they can. Once we're on the ground, we won't have the luxury. As the team dispersed to various sections of the aircraft, Miguel remained at the schematics table, studying the conference center layout, committing every detail to memory. The building was a sprawling complex of meeting spaces, exhibition halls and offices, countless places for operatives to hide, numerous access points to monitor. Alexandra returned with 2 cups of coffee, setting one beside him. You've gone beyond the call of duty, Mir. Reyes, she said, her voice less commanding than before. When this began, you were simply trying to comfort a frightened child. Now you're helping prevent an international incident. Miguel accepted the coffee with a nod of thanks. The job description of custodian is fairly broad, he replied with a hint of dry humor. Maintaining cleanliness, ensuring safety, preventing bioterrorist attacks, all in a day's work. A ghost of a smile crossed Alexandra's face. Indeed, though I suspect your particular skill set is somewhat unique among the maintenance staff. She studied him thoughtfully. Why did you never return to police work after your injury healed? Miguel took a sip of coffee before answering. Some wounds don't heal completely, he said simply. The physical therapy got me back on my feet, but the department only offered desk duty afterward. I needed space, perspective. And you found that mopping floors and emptying trash cans? There was no condescension in her tone, only genuine curiosity. I found it in the quiet, Miguel explained. In the routine, in watching the world without being watched in return. There's a certain freedom in invisibility. Alexandra nodded slowly. Yet when the moment demanded it, you stepped into the light without hesitation. Some habits never leave you, Miguel replied. The instinct to protect, to serve. Well, I'm grateful for those instincts, Alexandra said, and for your willingness to listen to my daughter when others might have dismissed her fears. She paused, vulnerability briefly visible beneath her composed exterior. Sophia lost her father 3 years ago. Cancer. She's had to grow up quickly, adapt to my demanding schedule, learn independence. Perhaps too young. I worry sometimes that she sees threats everywhere because her world is already proven unstable. She's remarkably perceptive, Miguel observed, and brave. Those are valuable traits even if they come with heightened vigilance. Alexandra nodded. Yes, they are. She straightened, the brief moment of personal reflection passing. You should try to rest, Mr. Reyes. The hardest part of this operation still lies ahead. As Alexandra moved toward her private cabin, Miguel returned to the schematics, but his thoughts kept drifting to Sophia, a child whose whispered warning had set in motion events that might alter the course of international relations. From the smallest beginning, a janitor hearing a child's tears had unfolded a conspiracy of breathtaking scope. Miguel had always believed in the butterfly effect, how tiny actions could trigger massive consequences. His years as a detective had shown him countless examples of minor observations leading to major breakthroughs, but never had the principle been so dramatically demonstrated as in the past 12 hours. He closed his eyes, visualizing the conference center, mapping approaches and exits, considering vantage points and blind spots. Whatever awaited them in Singapore, he was determined to be prepared. The former detective turned custodian was back on act, even if his badge now read maintenance. Singapore greeted them with oppressive humidity and the frenetic energy of a city never truly asleep. Dawn was breaking as their motorcade cut through streets already alive with commerce, the skyscrapers ahead catching the first golden rays of sunlight. Miguel sat in the lead vehicle with Alexandra and James, reviewing final preparations on a secured tablet. His janitor's uniform had been replaced by nondescript business attire, part of his new cover as a Langford Industries security consultant. The transformation felt both foreign and familiar, a return to a life he'd left behind. Status update, Alexandra said, answering a call on her encrypted phone. She listened intently, her expression revealing nothing. Understood. Proceed as planned. She ended the call and turned to them. The gas leak evacuation is scheduled for 9:30 a.m., 3 hours before my keynote. Singapore authorities have been briefed. Only their counter-terrorism unit knows the real reason. All other personnel think it's a legitimate infrastructure issue. What about Lu Wei? Miguel asked. Facial recognition has confirmed his presence, James replied. He checked into the Marina Bay Sands 2 days ago under a diplomatic passport. He's scheduled to attend the summit as part of the Chinese trade delegation. Bold, Miguel observed. Being personally present at an operation this sensitive, it's his signature, Alexandra noted. According to Harrington, Liu insists on overseeing critical phases of major operations himself. He doesn't trust subordinates with execution. Their convoy pulled into the underground parking of the St. Regis, bypassing the main entrance for a private access point. Security personnel in Langford uniforms formed a protective corridor as they exited the vehicles. Dr. Park and Dr. Mehta? Miguel inquired as they entered a secure elevator. Contained, James confirmed. My team intercepted them at their hotel an hour ago. They believe they're being moved for their protection due to a credible threat against the conference. They're currently in a secure holding area under discreet observation. The elevator opened directly into a suite that had been converted into an operations center. Screens displayed building schematics, surveillance feeds, and personnel movements. A team of specialists, A mix of Langford security and Singapore counterterrorism worked at various stations. A lean, serious woman in a crisp suit approached. Ms. Langford. Lieutenant Colonel Teo, Singapore Internal Security Department. My team is in position. The technical specialists you requested have secured the mechanical room perimeter, but are awaiting your experts before attempting entry. Alexandra made introduction. This is James Chun, my head of security, and Miguel Reyes is special consultant for this operation. Colonel Teo found it odd that a special consultant had appeared out of nowhere for a crisis of this magnitude. She gave no indication. Miguel had found that in emergency situations, credentials were rarely questioned as long as one projected competence. Mr. Harrington? Colonel Teo inquired. Secure in a separate location, James replied, under joint custody of our security and your officer. He's continuing to provide operational details as they're needed. Colonel Teo nodded. The decontamination team from your Singapore facility has arrived with containment equipment. They're staging in the service area beneath the conference center. What's our timeline looking like? Miguel asked, studying the surveillance feeds. James checked his tactical display. Evacuation begins at 9:30. Technical team enters the mechanical room at 10 o'clock. If all goes as planned, we'll have the delivery system neutralized by 11 o'clock, giving us time to sweep for secondary devices before the planned keynote at 12:30. And Lu Wei? Alexandra asked. Colonel Teo brought up a surveillance image on the main screen. Currently at breakfast with members of the Chinese delegation in the hotel restaurant. We have eyes on him but are maintaining distance as instructed. Miguel studied the image of the architect, a man in his 50s with silver-streaked hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and an air of scholarly dignity that belied his lethal intentions. Nothing in his demeanor suggested he was orchestrating a bioterror attack mere hours from now. What about his support team? Miguel asked. We've identified 3 likely operatives, Colonel Teo replied, bringing up additional images. This woman posing as a trade attached. This man part of the technical crew for the conference AV system. And this one working as a server in the VIP lounge. All have multiple documented connections to Chinese intelligence. The AV technician, Miguel noted. He'd have access to the triggering mechanism. Precisely. James agreed. We believe he'll be the one to activate the system during Alexander's speech. Alexander studied the operational plan. I should record the speech segment now. We'll need it ready to broadcast on command once the building is cleared. As Alexandra was escorted to a makeshift recording setup, Miguel focused on the conference center schematics. I want to inspect the mechanical room personally. If this goes wrong, we need someone on site who has seen the prototype device. James nodded. I had the same thought. You and I will join the technical team. Colonel Teo's people will maintain the perimeter and track Lu's movements. Miguel checked his watch. 2 hours until evacuation begins. What about the ASEAN delegates? Are they all being briefed? Only security chiefs and only just before evacuation, Colonel Teo explained. We can't risk word spreading prematurely. And if Leo detects the evacuation isn't routine, Miguel pressed. We have contingency plans, James assured him, including immediate capture protocols for all identified operatives. But ideally, we neutralize the threat before Lu realizes anything's wrong. Miguel wasn't convinced. In my experience, operations this sophisticated include surveillance on emergency services. The moment fire trucks or hazmat teams arrive for our fake gas leak, Leah will know something's off. Colonel Teo smiled thinly. We've accounted for that. We're staging a legitimate gas leak report at a building 3 blocks away. Emergency vehicles will respond there first, establishing a pattern. Only then will they discover our leak and redirect. Miguel nodded appreciatively. Good thinking. Their planning was interrupted as a security specialist approached with a tablet. Sir, we've intercepted communications between Lu Wei and an unknown contact. Text messages in code, but we've partially decrypted them. James took the tablet, scanning the contents with Miguel looking over his shoulder. Timeline acceleration, Miguel read aloud. Contingency Alpha initiated. New execution window 10:45. James's expression darkened. They're moving up the attack. Something spooked them. Alexandra returned from recording her speech segment, immediately sensing the tension. What's happened? Lu Wei has ordered early execution, James explained, instead of waiting for your keynote at 12:30. They're now planning to activate at 10:45, right in the middle of our operation to neutralize the device. How did they know? Alexandra demanded. Miguel's mind raced through possibilities. They don't necessarily know about our specific operation. Something else could have triggered their contingency protocol. He turned to Colonel Teo. Any unusual activity around the conference center or summit security? The colonel checked with her team before responding. Nothing significant reported. Wait, ... single quotes. She listened to information coming through her earpiece. One of the Philippine delegates canceled attendance 30 minutes ago. Health concerns. That could be it, Miguel said. If their primary targets included Philippine representatives, a last-minute cancellation might trigger suspicion. Regardless of the reason, we need to adjust, James stated firmly. The evacuation needs to happen immediately. Not at 9:30. Colonel Teo was already mobilizing her team. I'll coordinate with building management. We can initiate emergency protocols within 15 minutes. Alexandra's face was a mask of controlled tension. What about the device? If they've moved up the timeline, could they also have changed the activation method? It's possible, Miguel acknowledged, but modifying a complex delivery system on short notice would be challenging. More likely, they're sticking with the same mechanism but triggering it earlier. James updated the operational timeline on his tablet. New schedule. Evacuation begins immediately. Technical team enters the mechanical room at 9:45. Will have less than 1 hour to locate and neutralize the device before their planned activation. As the team reorganized around the accelerated timeline, Miguel noticed Alexandra standing slightly apart, her gaze fixed on the surveillance image of Lu Wei calmly sipping tea in the hotel restaurant. He seems so, ordinary, she observed as Miguel approached. If I passed him at a conference, I'd think he was just another diplomat or businessman. The most dangerous predators rarely advertise themselves, Miguel replied. It's what makes them effective. Alexandra turned to him. I built my career on reading people, Mr. Reyes, assessing motivations, anticipating moves. Yet I completely misjudged Victor, a man I've worked alongside for 8 years. Her voice carried no self-pity, only analytical disappointment. That failure of judgment nearly cost countless lives, including your own, Miguel reminded her. Don't forget you were a primary target. That's hardly comforting, Alexandra said with grim humor. Being assassinated alongside political leaders doesn't make my judgment any better. Miguel considered her words. In my detective days, I learned that betrayal rarely announces itself. The most devastating deceptions come from those we have legitimate reasons to trust. Your mistake wasn't trusting Victor. It was not having systems in place to verify that trust. Alexandra raised an eyebrow. Is that your professional assessment, Detective Reyes? Just an observation from someone who's seen his share of betrayals, Miguel replied, both wearing a badge and pushing a mop. A ghost of a smile touched Alexandra's lips. Fair enough. Her expression grew serious again. When this is over, assuming we succeed, I'll need to rebuild Langford's security from the ground up. Perhaps I should consult a certain custodian with unusual qualifications. Before Miguel could respond, James approached with urgent news. Evacuation procedures are initiating. Colonel Teo's team has reported movement from Leo's operatives. They're converging on the conference center ahead of schedule. They're responding to the evacuation, Miguel realized. They think something's compromised their plan. Then we need to move now, Alexandra stated. If they're converging, they might attempt to trigger the device manually rather than wait for the scheduled time. The operations center erupted into coordinated activity as teams deployed to their positions. Miguel checked the specialized equipment he'd been issued, communication devices, technical tools, and a compact sidearm that felt both foreign and familiar in his hand. Ready? James asked as they prepared to depart. Miguel nodded, his mind settling into the focused clarity he remembered from his detective days. Ready. As they headed toward the door, Alexandra called after them, Mr. Reyes. Miguel turned back. Sophia would never forgive me if anything happened to the man who believed her when no one else would, she said simply. Be careful. Miguel nodded once, understanding the weight behind her words. I promised her a castle with strong gates, remember? I intend to keep that promise. With that, they departed for the conference center, racing against an enemy already in motion and a biological weapon poised to unleash catastrophe. The Singapore International Conference Center was in controlled chaos. Security personnel in plainclothes directed attendees toward exits, while building management staff cited gas leak warnings through the public address system. To the evacuees, it appeared to be an unfortunate but routine safety precaution. Only a select few knew it was a race against mass murder. Miguel and James entered through the service entrance, bypassing the main evacuation flow. They wore maintenance uniforms over lightweight tactical gear, a disguise that would allow them to move freely through restricted areas without drawing attention. Technical team is already at the mechanical room, James reported, checking his earpiece. Colonel Teo reports the last delegates are being moved to the evacuation center. Liu Wei is still at his hotel, but his operatives are on the move. Where's the AV technician? Miguel asked as they ascended through the service stairwell. Last seen heading toward the main control room on the second floor. Singapore officers are tracking but maintaining distance as instructed. They reached the fourth floor, where two of Colonel Teo's officers guarded the corridor leading to the mechanical room. Beyond them, Miguel could see Langford's technical team in hazmat gear preparing to enter. Status? James asked the team leader, a stern-faced woman Miguel recognized from the Singapore facility. Initial scans show unusual power consumption in the northeast quadrant of the mechanical room, she reported. We've detected electronic components that weren't in the original building plans. Entry team is ready. Miguel studied the schematics one more time. Based on the prototype, we're looking for something that resembles a standard air quality monitoring system, approximately the size of a small refrigerator, likely positioned near the primary ventilation trunk line. The team leader nodded. We're equipped with Harrington's deactivation codes. If the device matches the prototype, we should be able to neutralize it remotely. And if it doesn't? Miguel asked. Then we contain and extract for safe disposal, she replied matter-of-factly. The room will be sealed and negative pressure established before we attempt any intervention. James received an update through his earpiece, his expression darkening. The AV technician has disappeared from surveillance. Last seen entering a maintenance corridor on level 3. Miguel's instincts flared. That corridor connects directly to the mechanical room ventilation shaft. He could be attempting manual activation. Team, adjust approach, James ordered. Possible hostile en route to your location through the ventilation system. Proceed with caution. The technical team accelerated their preparation, two members drawing compact sidearms while continuing to don protective gear. Miguel checked his own weapon, the familiar weight both reassuring and concerning. He hadn't fired a gun in action since his injury. I'm going to intercept the technician, Miguel decided. You stay with the main team to secure the device. James hesitated. That wasn't the plan. We should stick together. If he reaches the mechanical room before the team neutralizes the device, it won't matter how many of us are there, Miguel countered. Someone needs to delay him. I know this building's service area is better than anyone here. After a moment, James nodded. Take this, he said, handing Miguel an additional communication device. Direct channel to Colonel Teo's tactical team. If you locate him, do not engage alone. Call for backup. Miguel accepted the device with no intention of waiting for backup if the situation demanded immediate action. Some habits died hard, including the tendency to confront threats directly that had earned him both commendations and ultimately a career-ending injury. As the technical team entered the mechanical room, Miguel descended to the third floor, navigating the maze of service corridors with the practiced ease of someone who had spent years in similar environments. The maintenance passages were his domain, the hidden arteries of the building that most people never noticed, but that kept everything functioning. Control. This is Reyes. Miguel spoke into his com. Any visual on our missing technician? Negative, came Colonel Teo's crisp response. Last seen entering maintenance door M314. No cameras in that section, copy that. Moving to intercept. The service corridor was dimly lit, the ambient noise of machinery providing cover for Miguel's movements. He moved with the quiet efficiency that had served him well both as a detective and as a custodian. Deliberate steps, minimal noise, awareness of sight lines and potential cover. A soft metallic sound echoed from ahead. Someone trying to be quiet but unfamiliar with how sound traveled in these spaces. Miguel slowed, drawing his weapon and advancing with increased caution. The corridor branched ahead, one path leading to electrical distribution panels, the other toward the vertical service shaft that connected to the mechanical room above. Miguel paused, listening. Another sound, fabric brushing against metal, coming from the shaft corridor. He advanced, keeping to the shadows, and saw a figure working at the access panel to the ventilation shaft. The AV technician, Lu Wei's operative, was removing the security bolts with practiced efficiency. Miguel had a clear shot, but taking it would violate multiple protocols and potentially alert Lu Wei that his operation was compromised. Instead, he keyed his comm silently, sending an alert signal to the tactical team, then prepared to intervene physically if necessary. The technician had the access panel open now and was reaching inside, extracting what appeared to be a small electronic device. Miguel recognized it immediately from Harrington's descriptions. A manual override trigger for the bioweapon delivery system. Step back from the panel, Miguel ordered, emerging from the shadows with his weapon raised. Hands where I can see them. The technician froze momentarily, then complied with unnerving calm, raising his hands while still holding the device. His face showed no surprise, no fear, only cold calculation. You are making a serious diplomatic error, the man said in accented English. I am part of the official Chinese delegation's support staff. This is a routine equipment check. The routine equipment check that will release a targeted pathogen into the ventilation system, Miguel replied. I don't think so. Place the device on the ground slowly. The technician's expression remained impassive. You misunderstand. This is a signal booster for the conference broadcast. Interference has been reported. We can discuss that with Singapore authorities, Miguel said. Put it down now. Single quotes. For a moment, Miguel thought the man would comply. Then, with startling speed, he flicked his wrist, sending the device spinning toward Miguel while simultaneously dropping into a defensive crouch. Miguel's instincts took over. He sidestepped the thrown device while maintaining his aim, but the technician was already in motion, launching himself forward in a practiced combat maneuver. Miguel fired, but the shot went wide as the technician's shoulder connected with his midsection, driving him back against the wall. The impact sent pain shooting through Miguel's old injury, but adrenaline overrode it. He brought his elbow down hard between the technician's shoulder blades, momentarily disrupting the attack. The narrow corridor limited both their movements, turning the confrontation into a brutal close-quarters struggle. The technician was clearly professionally trained, his strikes precise, targeting vulnerable points with mechanical efficiency. Miguel countered with the street-hardened techniques of a veteran detective, less elegant but brutally effective. When the technician attempted to disable Miguel's weapon hand with a joint lock, Miguel surprised him by dropping the gun deliberately, then using his now free hand to deliver a devastating strike to the man's throat. The technician staggered back, gasping. Miguel pressed the advantage, driving forward with a series of blows that forced the operative further away from the activation device that had skittered across the floor during their initial clash. Technical team, report status. Miguel managed to gasp into his come-between exchanges. Device located, came the response. Attempting neutralization sequence now. The news seemed to fuel the technician's desperation. With renewed intensity, he feinted left, then executed a sweeping kick that caught Miguel's bad leg, sending a shock of pain up his side and dropping him to one knee. The technician immediately broke away, diving for the activation device. Miguel lunged after him, catching his ankle and dragging him back. They grappled on the floor, rolling toward the open ventilation shaft. Neutralization sequence initiated, announced the come. 60 seconds to completion. The technician's face contorted with rage, the first real emotion he displayed. He redoubled his efforts, smashing his forehead into Miguel's face. Stars exploded behind Miguel's eyes as blood poured from his nose, but he maintained his grip, wrapping his arms around the technician in a restraint hold. "It's over," Miguel grunted pain. "The device is being neutralized. There's nothing to activate any." Whether it was Miguel's words or the realization that his mission was failing, something changed in the technician's demeanor. His struggles took on a different quality, not trying to escape now, but reaching for something at his waist. Miguel caught a glimpse of metal. Not a gun, but a small cylindrical object. Recognition flashed through his mind. A dead man's switch. A last resort destructive measure. If he couldn't succeed, he'd ensure no evidence remained. With desperate strength, Miguel twisted them both, positioning the technician beneath him and pinning the hand with the device against the floor. "Drop it," he commanded. "It's not worth dying for." The technician smiled for the first time. A cold, empty expression. "For China, it is always worth dying." Miguel felt the man's muscles tense for a final effort. Making a split-second decision, he released his restraining hold and rolled away, putting maximum distance between them just as the technician triggered the device. The explosion was small but intensely focused, designed not to destroy the building but to eliminate a single target and any evidence on their person. The blast echoed through the service corridor, followed by the acrid smell of burned flesh and electronics. Miguel pulled himself to his feet, pain radiating from multiple points, and approached the fallen operative. There was no need to check for signs of life. The device had done its job with terrible efficiency. Where the technician's chest had been was now a charred cavity, the suicide device having burned through flesh and bone rather than outward. "Control. This is Reyes," Miguel reported, his voice rough. "Hostile is down. Self-terminated with some kind of incendiary device." "Copy that," Colonel Teo responded. "Medical team en route to your location. Technical team reports neutralization sequence complete. The bioweapon delivery system has been secured." Miguel leaned against the wall, the adrenaline fading and the pain of his injuries asserting itself. The immediate threat was contained, but something nagged at his instincts, a sense that they were missing a piece of the puzzle. "What about Lu Wei?" he asked into the cum. There was a pause before James's voice came through. "Still at his hotel. No change in status or behavior." That didn't make sense. An operation of this magnitude failing, his key operative dead, and the mastermind was calmly continuing his morning routine? "Something's wrong," Miguel said, more to himself than to the cum. "This isn't over." As if in confirmation, Alexandra's voice cut through the channel, tense with urgency. "All teams be advised. We have new intelligence. Lu Wei may have implemented a backup plan. I'm sending details now." Miguel checked the secure tablet strapped to his wrist. The message contained a final confession from Harrington, extracted during continued interrogation. Lu Wei always operated with redundancies. If Plan A failed, Plan B activated automatically. And Plan B, according to Harrington, involved a second bioweapon delivery system. Smaller, more targeted, but potentially just as devastating. The target: Alexandra Langford herself. Miguel forced himself to move despite the pain radiating from his injured leg and bruised ribs. The medical team would have to wait. Alexandra was in immediate danger. "All units be advised," he spoke into his cum, limping quickly toward the exit. "Primary threat contained, but secondary threat active. Target is Langford herself. Need immediate protective detail and location confirmation." "Ms. Langford is at the evacuation command center," came Colonel Teo's response. "Security's being reinforced now." "Not good enough," Miguel insisted. "We need to move her immediately to a secure location." According to Harrington, Lou's backup plans are designed to activate the moment the primary plan fails. "Copy that. Extraction team deploying now." Single quotes. Miguel reached the main corridor where two of Colonel Teo's officers were rushing toward him. "Vehicle waiting at the south entrance," one informed him. "Direct route to Ms. Langford's position." The ride to the evacuation center was tense and swift, Singapore traffic parting before their emergency lights. Miguel used the time to review Harrington's latest information displayed on his tablet. "The secondary delivery system is likely disguised as a personal item," he explained to the officers. "Possibly something given to Alexandra as a gift or a presentation token." According to Harrington, Lee's specialty is what he calls elegant simplicity, weapons hidden in plain sight. They arrived at the command center, a repurposed conference hall in a nearby hotel where evacuated delegates were being processed and briefed. Security had been visibly enhanced, with armed officers at all entrances and plainclothes personnel throughout the space. Alexandra stood in a corner with James and Colonel Teo, studying updates on a secure tablet. She looked up as Miguel approached, her eyes widening slightly at his bloodied appearance. "Mir Reyes, you should be with the medical team." "That can wait," Miguel replied. "Have you received anything from the Chinese delegation in the past 24 hours? A gift, a document packet, anything physical?" Alexandra's brow furrowed. "Several items. A commemorative pen from the trade minister, a traditional tea set as a cultural exchange gift, a portfolio with the proposed joint ventures." "Where are they now?" Miguel interrupted. "In my temporary office," she replied, gesturing to a door across the room. "Security scanned everything, of course." "Standard security scans wouldn't detect what we're looking for," Miguel said. "We need to isolate those items immediately." The temporary office was a converted hotel suite, with Alexandra Alexandra's briefcase and several diplomatic gift bags arranged neatly on the desk. Miguel approached cautiously, examining each item without touching them. The bioweapon delivery system would need to be something you'd handle directly, Miguel reasoned aloud. Something that could deliver a concentrated dose through contact. James joined them, examining the items from a distance. The pen, he suggested. It's traditional at these summits to use ceremonial pens for signing agreements. Miguel nodded. Classic approach. Where is it? Alexandra pointed to an ornate lacquered box. There. I was scheduled to use it during the signing ceremony after my keynote. Using a handkerchief to avoid direct contact, Miguel carefully opened the box. Inside was an exquisite fountain pen, crafted from black lacquer with gold inlay. Beautiful, elegant, and potentially deadly. We need the technical team here with containment equipment, Miguel said. Nobody touches this until they clear it. As James coordinated with the hazmat specialists, Miguel's gaze fell on another item, a leather portfolio embossed with the conference logo and Alexandra's name. What's that? He asked. The conference program and my speaker notes, Alexandra replied. Every keynote speaker received one. Something about it triggered Miguel's investigative instincts. Did you handle it much? I reviewed the contents this morning, made some annotations. Miguel carefully opened the portfolio using the handkerchief. The program and notes appeared normal, but the leather itself had an unusual sheen to certain areas, particularly where fingers would naturally rest while holding it. Both, Miguel realized. He prepared to delivery methods to ensure contact, the pen for the ceremony and the portfolio for preparation. Redundancy within redundancy. The technical team arrived, quickly establishing a portable containment field around the suspicious items. Their specialized equipment confirmed Miguel's suspicions. Both the pen and the portfolio contained microscopic delivery systems for the pathogen, designed to activate upon skin contact. The pen has a microneedle in the clip, the lead technician reported. The portfolio uses a transdermal compound in the leather that activates with the natural oils in human skin, both containing the same agent identified in the primary delivery system. Would I have been infected already? Alexandra asked, her voice clinical despite the personal nature of the question. Preliminary tests on your hands are negative, the technician replied. The portfolio compound was designed to fully activate only after repeated handling. You'd need to use it throughout the day. And the pen, of course, hadn't been used yet. As the technical team secured the contaminated items, Miguel's gaze met Alexandra's. Lu Wei is still out there, he said quietly. As long as he remains free, he can activate additional contingencies. I'm aware, she replied, her voice hardened. Colonel Teo's team is preparing to detain him now that we have concrete evidence. Miguel shook his head. He'll have diplomatic immunity. Even with evidence, formal channels could take days to navigate. By then, he'll be back in Beijing. What are you suggesting? James asked. A different approach, Miguel said. One that ensures Liu understands the consequences of his actions, even if formal justice is delayed. Alexandra studied him thoughtfully. You have something in mind. 20 minutes later, Miguel entered the executive lounge of the Marina Bay Sands, where Lu Wei sat alone enjoying a late breakfast while reading news reports of the conference center evacuation. Despite the disruption to his plans, he appeared perfectly composed, a man accustomed to adapting when operations went awry. Miguel approached the table and sat down uninvited across from the Chinese intelligence operative. Liu looked up, mild surprise giving way to careful assessment. I don't believe we've been introduced, Liu said pleasantly, his English perfect and unaccented. We haven't, Miguel agreed, but I think you'll want to hear what I have to say, Architect. The code name produced the briefest flicker in Liu's eyes. A micro-expression most would miss, but to Miguel's trained observation, a clear confirmation. An interesting term, Leo replied smoothly. I'm merely a trade representative here for peaceful economic discussions. Miguel placed a phone on the table between them, activating a secure media player. Silent footage appeared, Liu meeting with Harrington in Macau 3 months earlier, captured by surveillance cameras Harrington hadn't known existed. Another clip showed Liu personally handling what appeared to be the bioweapon prototype in a secure facility. We have everything, Miguel said quietly. Harrington's full confession. The neutralized delivery systems, chemical analysis confirming the pathogen's origin. And now this footage, which places you personally at the center of the operation. Liu's composed expression didn't waver, but his fingers tightened slightly around his teacup. Interesting materials, he said. Though I'm curious why you're showing me rather than Singapore authority. Perhaps because such evidence, obtained through questionable means, would be inadmissible in any legal proceeding, or because my diplomatic status prevents any meaningful action. We both know formal channels have limitations, Miguel acknowledged. This isn't about arrest, it's about understanding. Understanding what, exactly? That while you may leave Singapore today under diplomatic protection, everything we've gathered has already been distributed to intelligence agencies worldwide through secure channels. Your operational patterns, methods, and associates are now thoroughly documented. Your effectiveness as the architect is finished. For the first time, genuine emotion crossed Liu's face, a flash of cold anger quickly suppressed. Who are you? He asked, reassessing Miguel with new interest. Just a janitor who heard a child crying, Miguel replied simply. but I'm not what matters. What matters is what happens next. Alexandra Langford is prepared to make this evidence public unless certain conditions are met. I'm listening, Liu said, his voice neutral but attentive. First, all operations against Langford Industries cease permanently. Second, the research you weaponized is returned to its original purpose, medical treatment. And third, the compromised researchers at the Singapore facility are released from whatever leverage you hold over them. Modest requests. Liu. Nothing about prosecution or international sanctions. Those will come through proper channels at their own pace, Miguel said. These are the immediate terms for discretion. Otherwise, by this evening, your name and face will be on every news broadcast globe, connected to attempted bioterrorism. Liu considered the terms, his calculating mind visibly weighing options. Even if I were in a position to influence such matters, what guarantee would I have of compliance with discretion? The same guarantee we have for your compliance with our terms, Miguel replied. Mutually assured destruction. Cross us, the evidence goes public. We expose you, your operations are compromised worldwide. After a long moment, Liu nodded almost imperceptibly. A professional courtesy then, between opposing interests. Call it whatever you like, Miguel said, standing. But understand this is your only warning. Next time there will be no private conversation. As Miguel walked away, Lo called after him softly. The child who was crying, the CEO's daughter. She has her mother's perception. Remarkable that she overheard enough to unravel everything. Miguel paused but didn't turn. Children see and hear more than we give them credit for. Something to remember in your line of work. 3 days later, Miguel stood in Alexandra Langford's office in Singapore, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in gold. His injuries had been treated, though his leg would require further therapy. A reminder of how close they'd come to catastrophe. Alexandra entered, closing the door behind her. It's done. Lu Wei has been quietly recalled to Beijing. Our sources indicate he's being reassigned to an administrative role, a significant demotion that preserves face while removing him from operational control. And the researchers, Dr. Park and Dr. Mehta, have been debriefed. They were manipulated, not willing participants. They'll continue their legitimate work under enhanced security protocols. Miguel nodded, satisfied. And you? What's next for Langford Industries? A complete security overhaul for starters, Alexandra replied. I've already spoken with the board about creating a new position, Chief of Internal Security, someone with both investigative experience and intimate knowledge of how buildings and systems actually function. Someone who sees what others miss. Sounds like a specialized role, Miguel observed. Very, Alexandra agreed. I have a candidate in mind, assuming he's willing to trade his mop for a corner office. Before Miguel could respond, the office door burst open, and Sophia ran in, her face lighting up when she saw him. Monsieur Reyes, Mother said you were coming back with us. She rushed forward, stopping just short of hugging him as she noticed his bandages. Are you hurt? Just a few scratches, Miguel assured her with a smile. Nothing serious. Sophia studied him seriously. Mother told me what happened. Not everything, but enough. She said you saved her life, that you were a hero. Miguel glanced at Alexandra, who raised an eyebrow as if daring him to contradict her. I just did my job, Miguel said gently. The same as when I found you crying in that hallway. But that's what heroes do, isn't it? Sophia persisted. Their jobs, even when they're scared or it's dangerous, like in the stories. Miguel considered her words. I suppose sometimes heroes do start out as janitors who happen to be in the right place at the right time, and sometimes, Alexandra added, they end up exactly where they belong, protecting people who never knew how much they needed protection. As Sophia chattered excitedly about returning home, Miguel gazed out at the Singapore skyline, reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events set in motion by one small moment of kindness toward a frightened child, from custodian to hero and back again, or perhaps forward to something new. Whatever title he might hold next, Miguel knew the essential truth would remain unchanged. Sometimes the most important people in any building are the ones no one notices, the ones who keep things clean and function, the invisible guardians who notice when something is wrong and care enough to act. And sometimes the most important moment in anyone's day is taking the time to listen when a child is crying.